The sound of screaming from a weatherboard home. It was the start of a morning of unimaginable tragedy.
A little girl, mate, 6-week-old. That's not very nice.
You hear now it's an infant, I just feel really ill, really sick.
A residential street in Wallsend declared a crime scene after it was revealed that a 6-week-old baby girl was found dead after her throat had been cut.
It's a very tragic set of circumstances here today, and we do our heart goes out to other members of the family.
At around 9 o'clock this morning, police were confronted by a tragic scene. A 26-year-old woman was taken into custody to help with inquiries. As for neighbours, they're still in shock.
Your mind just goes to places where you think, could a neighbour's help or some interaction in the community maybe have saved this circumstance? But you don't know the story.
Forensic police carried out investigations inside the property with a command post set up nearby. The baby's mother was arrested this morning. She remains in custody while police have spoken to the infant's father and extended family members. It's believed the family are West African and have been renting the home for around 6 months. Michael Kane, NBN News.
A small but vocal group, passionate about their push to secure jobs in Australia's shipbuilding industry. Representatives from the AMWU joined displaced Forjax workers in a protest outside Patterson MP Bob Baldwin's office today. The company let go of 160 employees last month as its air warfare destroyer contract comes to a close.
If nothing's done over the next couple of months, Forjax will shut down by the end of Christmas. There is no work in the pipeline to keep that place open, and it's an absolute tragedy for our region.
Mr Baldwin blames the former federal Labor government for the lack of work.
For there to be steel on the ground today, for jobs to be there today, the contracts to a prime contractor must have been let in 2010.
All we hear from the Liberal Party and Bob Baldwin is it's Labor's fault, but the fact is they're in government and they have the power to change it, and that's what we need them to do.
The coalition is considering a continuous build strategy as part of its defence white paper. Mr Baldwin says the government has also accelerated the tender for the Pacific Patrol Boats contract and is moving forward with the design of the future frigates.
The government is expediting the process as much as it can and still keeping the due diligence in these processes. It's not like you go to the shelf, buy a set of plans and start building tomorrow. It doesn't work that way.
Renee Feder, NBN News.
It's a battle that's been running for 2 years, but persistence has paid off for the residents of Whitebridge. Last night, they turned out in force to what could have been their last chance to show opposition to the $23 million housing development. And their concerns were heard, with the Joint Regional Planning Panel deferring its judgment, urging developer SNL Building Constructions to address issues with design, height and density.
I think the decisions are a step in the right direction. I think they could have gone further and the legislation was there to go even further if they wanted. It was good to see that that top story needs to be removed from the building on Dudley Road.
As a result, around 7 units could be removed from the plans.
That helps a little bit, but it's still not as much as we would have liked.
The decision coming as a shock to the developer.
You're never going to please 100% of the people, so it's just disappointing that the people that are still objecting are quite vehement in their opposition.
It now has 6 weeks to lodge an amended proposal with Council.
We're certainly not intending to take that long, so we'll sit down and have some discussions with the architect over the course of the next few days, and we expect to have some plans back into Council hopefully within a fortnight or so.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
in Australia we have mandatory reporting, which compels us to report abuse if we as health workers see it. It seems like there's a different rule for children in immigration detention, and that's unfair.
So many young couples are going in and are renovating their homes, and when they get in there, obviously they're finding asbestos. So the Bernie Banton Foundation's here this year to teach those couples what they need to do and what they need to look out for.
Chris Houston has been a loyal servant at the Knights, but for how much longer is not yet known. He laughed at suggestions he's off to England, but will keep his options open.
I love Newey. I've been here now for 8 or 9 years, and I've got no real plans on going at this stage, but you never say never, and yeah, we'll just see what happens.
In local rugby union, the Hawks are undefeated, but Scott Coleman believes his side is struggling. He concedes the Hawthorn club's decision to suspend the Hawthorn Cup due to Hamilton's dominance has taken its toll.
It's pretty well coincided with our form slump at the moment. The guys just aren't there mentally. They just don't have that extra bonus to play for. So, yeah, it was very sour for us to swallow.
The Cup is up for grabs every round. The club in possession gets $300 for each defence.
For me personally, it's pretty disgusting to pull it halfway through the season. And, yeah, I just don't know how all the members could have voted for this.
Today was the last chance for some to impress. Naturally, the intensity was high.
That's got to be the minimum standard. For me, we were very vocal with the intensity today and driving them and maintaining that the big challenge is ahead. But that's a minimum standard of quality.
Unfortunately for a few, their effort was in vain. Scott Miller is after 2 match winners and is searching the globe to find them.
My view is 9 and 10 visa players of quality and experience. We're getting there. We've identified a number of people. It's just coming down to the actual decision-making process now.
Recruits Cameron Watson, Matteo Polyak and Labano Halidi trained with the club for the first time today. Watson joins the Jets from Adelaide, a left-back with the ability to play in the midfield. Unsigned for the coming season, he didn't need much convincing.
Pretty quick conversation actually, and everything from him was really positive, just what was going down on here at the Jets, and I'd heard good reports all around, and it didn't take much for me to make my mind up to come here.
Halidi has returned for his 3rd stint at the Jets. Both he and Polyak are expected to bring big game experience to the side.
You can see straight away this morning from a training session the intensity is up and it's good. And something I'm looking forward to, like I said before.
It's a bit different, different requests from coaching staff, and I like it. I can say really that I like it. I think it's going to be a bit different, and I think for me personally, that's something I need.
In my mind, I'm number one, and eventually I'm going to be legitimately number one, and it doesn't matter who's in front of me, because if you give me a camp to train for someone, there's no way they beat me when I turn up on fight night. I broke my hand in my last fight, but I still got the win, but I think he's going to break someone's jaw on Saturday night.
It might look rosy from the front, but it's a different story out the back. Newcastle Baths is becoming known as the region's version of the never-ending story. Today's hidden construction site almost identical to the one reported on back in 2011.
But walk through and take a look from another angle and it's a very different view, still like a half-finished construction site.
Newcastle Council spent $4 million on an overhaul back in 2008. At the time, former councillor Aaron Buman was adamant the structure be demolished instead of repairing the heritage-listed building.
It's Newcastle's most expensive toilet block and kiosk, and it's a damn shame it's never been developed. It costs the ratepayer at the end of the day. What do we want this city to be? It's sad that people think developers are evil in this town, but it needs private money to take it to the next level.
Merriweather's iconic ocean bars reopened in November last year after a $4 million upgrade, and as a result, patronage has soared. While at Newcastle Baths, as you can see, it's a completely different story. But as far as Newcastle Council are concerned, they're still waiting on a decision from Crown Lands.
We've changed the plan of management, publicly exhibited it, and now we're just waiting for the state government, Crown Lands, to sign off on the plan of management, and then we can go out to tender.
As the Bathers Way project progresses nearby, Mayor Nelms says getting the landmark up to scratch is vital.
It's very important that the sites of our iconic historic ocean bars are upgraded to match all the works along Bathers Way.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
The Cessna 210 vanished without a trace near the Barrington Tops 34 years ago. Despite numerous searches over the years, the final resting place of the 5 men on board has never been found. A New Zealand pilot who investigates aviation mysteries has spent 4 years researching the incident.
And I got all the transcripts and tied them all together so that you could work out a timeline.
After taking off at Coolangatta, the plane made it to Taree without incident. It then proceeded inland towards its destination of Singleton, but when passing Craven south of Gloucester, the aircraft started experiencing considerable turbulence. Soon after, the pilot reported entering cloud before losing his primary flight instruments. Gavin believes the next events are a turning point.
When I tied all the transcript together, just after that, the controllers actually said to themselves, I don't know what he's doing, he's turned on the easterly heading.
He believes the pilot continued east of the Barrington Tops before the plane came down around 8 kilometres west of Craven.
I believe he carried on that course towards Forster, so he'll be in that area somewhere.
Gavin has published his findings online and has passed the information on to the Bushwalkers Wilderness Rescue Squad. Renee Feder, NBN News.
Things like transport to and from treatment, some cleaning services and lawn services, and other supportive programs that we have in place.
Taking on the undefeated Hawks, the Greens' new points would be at a premium. Sam Gilmore opened the home side's account. Hamilton would give Merewether a similar level of respect, Jason Keelan levelling the score. The Hawks looked the most likely to cross first, but a dropped ball would see Sam Rouse pounce. Showing would-be chasers a clean set of heels, the Greens would take an early lead. The Hawks hit back with a try to Laufisa Vasagote. But Merewether extended its advantage after the break, again through the boot of Sam Gilmore. Jason Keelan would bring the Hawks to within 2, but it was replacement Matt Ferry who would put the Hawks in front for the first time. Back-to-back penalties and an upset was on the cards, but the Hawks were clutch under pressure. A try to Sam Brennan, and it looked like Hamilton would keep its unbeaten record intact. The game was far from done. Sam Gilmore drained this penalty from halfway to win it for the home side. Lambton has been in good form, but ladder leaders Edgeworth would draw first blood. A cracking volley from Aidan Bryce whistled straight by Brad Swancott. On the back foot, Lambton drew on its experience. Some extra attention on John Majerovski would earn the Jaffers a free kick, but it was Alex Polozzi who would do the damage for the home side. Some enterprising play would see Dylan Holtz find open space. From there, he didn't disappoint, putting the Eagles back in front before the break. Kevin Davidson went down hard before half-time and wouldn't return, Edgeworth stealing the points to extend its lead on top of the ladder.
Probably the last 4 or 5 years when I've linked up with the local trainer here, Chris Lees, who's always the dominant trainer around here, that was the first time I really thought I had the backing to be able to do it. Yeah, I'm not just going to rest on that now. I want to win this premiership again next year and beat my record again.
On the outskirts of Morisset, metres from a busy road, another illegal dump site. Among the piles of building rubble, a potentially deadly find.
It's friable asbestos. It's been smashed up, exposing the fibres.
It's hazards like these the regional illegal dumping squad has been working to eliminate. In its first 12 months, investigators have issued 80 fines, totalling around $100,000. And in this case, a carelessly discarded sign may lead to another prosecution.
We think members of the public might be able to identify the sign and assist us with where it may have originally come from.
Despite the squad's best efforts in the Hunter and on the Central Coast, illegal dumping is still far too common. Just down the road, mounds of freshly discarded green waste.
This is raw mulch, but it's got leaves in it. It's actually not classed as mulch anymore. It just becomes waste.
Local project coordinator Rob Robertson says it generally boils down to laziness.
It's not always construction and landscaping materials that are the problem. Quite often, it's general household waste like this, which could have been easily and lawfully disposed of at the tip.
The RID squad has been working with the EPA along with industry in an effort to curb the problem, but says public awareness is also key. To report illegal dumping, call the RID hotline. Amanda Douglas, NBN News.
right from the very beginning, there was a special spirit and character I regard it as the Tokal spirit, the Tokal character that was forged right there with those original students and staff.
It's full steam ahead in the Turner household, with 15-year-old Sunny set to compete on the world stage.
I'm overwhelmed, I'm excited, and I can't wait.
Sunny's introduction to the catwalk came from hunter model Tegan Martin, who finished in the top 10 of this year's Miss Universe pageant.
She had modelling classes, and Sunny, graciously watched, Tegan step up the ladder. Tegan is actually one of her mentors. And she basically loves her to death and just thought, I want to make Tegan feel proud of me as well. So she decided that she would follow in her footsteps.
Sunny's mum Sue is her biggest supporter and has been by her daughter's side every step of the way.
I am the proudest mum on earth, absolutely. Every time I see her up on stage, I cry, and you can ask everybody because I burst into tears.
Having already won several junior crowns, Sunny hopes to add at least one more to her collection at the Miss Global United in Florida. But it's not all about tiaras and sashes. Charity work is a huge part of pageantry, and when she returns, she'll hit the ground running on one of her several causes, helping orphans in Nepal.
I am raising money for the Jiwan Otan orphanage, giving them a bit of hope, giving them some clothes and so forth.
Meredith Gibbs, NBN News.
We're going to see a lot of variety of action. Theatre, dance, music, cabarets to stand up, a potpourri of performing arts.
We've got to play players who are willing to fight, mate. That's the only thing I'm looking for. Players are going to stand up, have some pride in the jumper, and fight their butt off for 80 minutes, and that's what you need.
Needing a win to have any hope of making the finals, the Butcher Boys made a great start. Jace Delaney, Ethan Cook and Josh Allison combining for the opener. The visitors were in again soon after, with Allison and Cale Bowen combining to double the advantage. When Cook and Allison linked up, the Butcher Boys went further in front. The home fans finally had something to cheer about as Scott Briggs teed up Joe Layton. Down 14-4 at half-time, Jared Flanagan had the chance to get Souths back in it, but Tim Penny was rock solid. From that point on, it was all central. Allison and Bowen produced 2 tries in a few minutes from identical plays. The Lions tried to rattle the Butcher Boys, but the visitors weren't fazed, Rowan Kelly producing something special with a solo effort. Flanagan did eventually cross the line at the end of a long-range effort, but Delaney would cap off a memorable win for Central.
Honourable World Champion one day, Mr. Class 1 again. I stand across from the best in the world.
Knights players arrived at a recovery session this morning, seemingly unaware Rick Stone was about to be sacked. This afternoon, Newcastle management were meant to be addressing local media about the club's strategic plan for the future. The bombshell announcement soon became the talking point.
So we had a board discussion this morning and we arrived at the position where we go our separate paths between Rick and the club.
Rick Stone was elevated to his second stint as Knights head coach following the departure of Wayne Bennett. Club officials say his ongoing loyalty has stayed their hand, but in the end, the team's poor performance on the field couldn't be ignored.
We need to make decisions in the best interest of the club and we need to see the performances in our team turn around.
Today's sacking could be the first of many, with the entire Newcastle playing and coaching staff put on notice.
What I will say to the players is they've got 7 weeks to prove to us that they want to be part of this club long term.
Club great Danny Badiris now faces the mammoth task of getting the troubled side back on track. He'll step in as interim coach.
Danny doesn't hold any ambitions to be the head coach moving forward. He's merely going to hold the reins for the next 7 weeks.
The Knights are expected to announce a new head coach within weeks. Amanda Douglas, NBN News.
This small lab deep within the Calvary Mater Hospital is about to put Newcastle on the map as a world leader in cannabis research.
I've been determined as part of this government to link with the best minds in the country to make a real difference to those who are struggling, some of the worst circumstances with the worst illnesses we face.
30 adults will participate in the Newcastle trial, the first of 3. It will start recruiting next year. Patients will test cannabis by inhaling it as a vapour, with researchers attempting to understand how it can alleviate symptoms and pain for those in the fight of their lives.
The first aim is actually to find out what sort of dose gives people benefit, if it exists, and what dose actually gives side effects such as psychosis or feeling unwell.
To really address the clinical challenge that we see with the patients and families that we work with every day in terms of loss of appetite, the lack of enjoyment in food and the distress that causes for their families.
Tamworth campaigner Lucy Haslam, whose late son Dan led the fight to decriminalise medicinal cannabis, says it's a welcome first step.
I'm just really overjoyed that, all the talks now sort of getting to the pointy end where patients are going to start to benefit. So I'm really pleased about it.
Dan Haslam was thrust into the spotlight through his own 5-year battle with cancer. Mike Baird had the young man foremost on his mind today.
And I will never forget my introduction to Dan and the look in his eyes, and it was very clear. He said, "This is making a difference. We have to do more."
The Premier hopes the trial could ultimately stop patients like Dan having to play the role of pharmacist and improve the quality of life for the terminally ill. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. This is the new look Transport Hub, a striking modern design intended to pay homage to Newcastle's industrial past. The interchange and retail space is expected to open in mid-2017, linking trains on the heavy rail line to buses, taxis and light rail.
It's time we got on with it. The city has waited too long and we are continuing to do everything we can to deliver it.
The government's animation shows a tram crossing Stewart Avenue, stopping traffic and heading east along the old rail corridor and ultimately into Hunter Street.
The intention is, before this term of government, to have light rail operating.
The Premier and Transport Minister unveiled the changes in Newcastle this morning, a far cry from the unloved original design dubbed the Shed.
We appreciated the feedback. Not always when you get feedback is a good feedback, but this is an opportunity to get it right.
But it could all be a little premature. Not only is the rail truncation still before the court, but next door the store has been closed and could soon be on the market.
That has been raised with me, and certainly it's something that the Transport can consider. The plan is there, but again, we want to make sure we get it right. It doesn't mean we can't consider additions or amendments that make sense.
Meanwhile, the Premier is standing firm on the Hunter Street hybrid light rail route. That's despite continued calls for the rail corridor to be used rather than create another so-called barrier to the harbour with multi-storey developments.
Yes, there's been some plans put forward by Urban Growth, but again, they're just plans and that's options for the community to think about.
You get a much slower journey down Hunter Street. Travellers won't take that journey. They'll drive cars. And that adds to gridlock, and we're seeing it already in Newcastle.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Two days on from the savage attack, Jesse Chapman is still clearly bearing the scars. On Friday night, he accidentally bumped into another vehicle at Strzelecki Lookout, but before he could even get out of the car...
And I look up and I see the guy, and I was going to say sorry about everything, and before I get a word out, he just hits me and he's just about got me out of the car, and he's grabbed my hair and held me against the car and hit me again. I spat blood all over the top of the car, and then he's pulled me to the other side of him and he's hit me to the ground.
It was only when the man's girlfriend begged him to stop that he did. Jesse then drove straight to the police station before spending most of the night at hospital. His mother is still shocked that someone could be so cruel.
And I was just horrified when Jesse told me the story. I couldn't believe that someone would do something like this. Just unbelievable. I was shaking with rage, to be honest.
Feeling helpless, Kathy Chapman launched a social media campaign to find the man who attacked her son.
Surely somebody's seen something, or somebody knows something, or the guy's talked about it, or even the girlfriend.
The bashing is the subject of a police investigation.
This is a particularly savage assault on someone I would suggest is a non-threatening individual and purely a victim.
He didn't even look at the damage to his car or my car. He just come straight to my door and just hit me.
The attacker was driving a white Hilux and is described as being around 35 years old, of solid build, 182 centimetres tall, and was wearing a high-vis shirt. Vivian von Drainen, NBN News. Hundreds in high-vis rallying in support of mining, prompted by so-called recent negativity surrounding pending mine approvals in the Hunter.
There is support in the community for this industry, that support is strong.
The rally timed to coincide with the Planning Minister's visit. He also made a last-minute appearance at the gathering. The group impressing upon him that the proposed changes to the state's planning policy would impact on jobs. Under those changes, a provision would be removed that makes the significance of the resource the main consideration.
The community here in the Hunter wants the planning system improved, wants it settled, so that our projects can continue to sustain the jobs that the Hunter needs.
Those economic benefits have to have a certain weighting on it, and they have to be seen as being what that keeps that community going.
The minister says the changes are all about rebalancing considerations to make environmental, social and economical factors equally important.
It's really, really important to ensure that projects get up because they're good projects. We're confident that the planning system does that. What we need to do is respond to community concerns that there is some sort of unfair weighting in the planning system.
Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
Following the heavy loss to South Sydney, Rick Stone issued a call to arms, demanding his players show some pride in the Newcastle jersey. Today, the Knights board decided he'd be the first to go.
I'm extremely disappointed that we've had to make this decision because he's a good man and he's worked incredibly hard.
Danny Badiris has been appointed as interim coach, but management says he doesn't have any designs on the job long term. The club has also enlisted the help of other Newcastle greats such as Paul Harrigan.
So we'll look to rely upon those, and I know those guys all want to support Danny through the next 7 weeks.
Meanwhile, in a rare piece of good news for the Knights, Dane Gagai now says he's feeling fine just a week after suffering an irregular heartbeat in the clash with the Titans.
There's no cure for it. They said it'll probably come on again, but just depends how aggressive it comes back. But yeah, he said it mightn't be for another 5 years, mightn't be for another 5 months or 5 weeks. So he just says, just go about your day like you normally do, and yeah, just got to keep an eye on it.
Teammate Danny Levi will undergo scans on his jaw and will have to follow concussion protocol this week after suffering a heavy knock against the Rabbitohs. And Tyrone Roberts has copped a Grade 1 dangerous throw charge for this tackle on Dylan Walker. He'll escape a ban with an early guilty plea.
good to have the group together, and obviously first trip away. So we're trying to build a culture here at the club, and hopefully this trip will kind of set the foundation for us moving forward.
So he's been on the radar for a while, so this is the first opportunity for us to see him. So he's a good young guy, looks promising.
A win for Merewether would have given the visitors a 10-point gap at the top of the WPL with just 2 rounds remaining in the regular season. But Adamstown ensured the battle for the premiership will go down to the wire. A brace to Olivia Trinker ensured 3 points for Rosebud. Also in round 19 there were wins for Valentine, Mid-North Coast and Thornton. To ice hockey, and it was a mixed weekend for the North Stars. Their Victorian road trip included a 2-1 loss to the Mustangs on Saturday and a 4-2 win over the Melbourne Ice on Sunday, but they maintained top spot in the National League. The Swans may have lost by 52 to West Coast in the AFL last night, but the game marked a successful return from injury for the Hunters' Isaac Heaney. The 19-year-old kicked 2 goals in another impressive display in his rookie season. Onto 2 wheels, and while Casey Stoner grabbed the headlines with his spectacular crash, another Hunter rider also had issues at the Suzuka 8-hour race. Brock Parks encountered mechanical problems and was forced to retire on lap 10. Closer to home, round 4 of the East Coast Motocross Series hit the track at Rutherford over the weekend. In the Pro Unlimited class, Cessnock's Aaron Parker faced off against riders from across the state, but it was series leader Corey James from Wollongong who everyone was chasing.
We throw out between $8 and $10 billion worth of food domestically across Australia every year. So that's about 1 in 5 shopping bags worth of food we throw in the bin.
Mitchell Hughes joins us now. And Mitch, given Newcastle's poor record, was today's sacking a shock?
To be honest, Tash, it actually was a bit of a shock. We were down at Knights recovery this morning and the players certainly didn't seem to be aware there was going to be any kind of move like this today. And we're even hearing reports this afternoon that the Knights players didn't know until as late as the media knew this afternoon as well. Now, Rick is definitely regarded as one of the nicest guys in rugby league, so the fact that this has happened later in the season is also a bit of a shock. The players have always seemingly been in support of Rick, but, you know, obviously the results now speak for themselves and it was only going to be a matter of time. There's also now a lot of names being thrown up as a possible replacement for Rick. I'm sure we'll hear more about those in the coming days. For now, it's back to you.
It was an extraordinary playing career with the Knights, but now Andrew Johns has launched a verbal spear tackle on his once beloved club.
They need to clean the place out. Well, they need someone with a massive big whip to get in there and crack it.
And was scathing of club culture and its connection to the town.
The whole place needs to start again.
Wasn't
they've
that
lost,
isn't
they've
that
lost
why
their
they
whole
brought Wayne Bennett
identity. They've lost the way they play. They've lost the culture within the place. I don't think they know what they stand for. I think the place is lost at the moment.
It's a sentiment shared by Knights Life member Lee Morn.
I talk to people all the time. I travel around the town, blokes who were football mad and ladies and families, and a lot of them couldn't care less. And that's worse than losing matches.
He says the club needs a rebirth to reconnect with fans.
The players used to come in and the fans were able to touch them. They knew them personally. They were a part of our family, the players. Now there's someone over there. It's a shakeout time. And I'm not pointing blame at anybody. We've just lost the mojo.
Danny Baderas partly blames the continued losses and drop in confidence.
The culture we've got has probably got to be rectified to a point where we've got to get back to the grassroots, and everyone here has tried to implement that. The club's obviously made a big statement yesterday, which direction it's heading, and there went mediocrity or whatever and losses, and the way we've been playing, it's not going to be accepted. So all the players are on notice.
It's an almighty task to turn the club around, but it seems this man has the passion needed.
I'll do anything for this place. I'll help out. I'll brush, I'll sweep floors. I don't care. As long as this club's helping this community out and the community's helping the club out, I'll be happy.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
We're really worried that TAFE in the Hunter is right on the edge of collapse. The smart and skilled competitive training market has taken 30% of TAFE's budget and put it into competition against low-cost, low-quality private providers. We're really concerned for students, particularly those from disadvantaged backgrounds who can't afford the new fees.
It's a site synonymous with Newcastle that for the past 14 months has been a work site. Behind the scaffolding and banners, stonemasons have been chipping away, replacing the clock tower's sandstone facade, little by little.
It's a very significant building. It's the people of Newcastle have entrusted us to repair it.
Breathing new life into the city's showpiece hasn't been easy. Work was halted due to the April storm, which will now shift the completion date to the end of the year. The clock has been taken off-site for repairs, while decorative pieces of sandstone have been added, which was sourced from a George Street construction site in Sydney. Well, this is typical of the restoration work that's been ongoing since May last year. The biggest problem has been the logistics. 300 tonnes of sandstone, all replacing the outside of the structure.
A bit labour intense what we're doing. We're bringing stone up and across the roof and up another 3 or 4 different electric hoists.
Christoph Becker's office for the past month has been at the project summit, and the German copper expert has the task of making a pyramid of steps which forms the clock's roof.
Became a passion over the years, me working with metal, mainly with copper. Yeah.
Are you a tradesman or an artist?
I would say both.
Newcastle Council will soon call for tenders for the project's next phase.
The next part will be on the facade, the lower half of Town Hall at the front, which will give it a very good
it'll return it to almost new to look at from the front of the building.
Michael Kane, NBN News. A debate on equality is shaping up to be a colourful one among Newcastle City councillors.
Road crossings and pedestrian crossings are all about safety, not anything else.
Newcastle Labor councillors have launched a push for an Equality for Novocastrians charter, which would signal the city's support for same-sex marriage. It will be debated at tonight's meeting.
I think it's very important to a lot of members in the community that council takes the lead on this issue.
Beaumont Street in Hamilton has been earmarked for a rainbow crossing to show the city's support, but Councillor Brad Luke believes the city has bigger issues to worry about.
Last week we had parking meters not working in the city. That's the sort of thing we should have our senior managers working on.
The Hamilton Business Chamber agrees, but it's their own problems they want fixed.
We in Hamilton could see some funds spent elsewhere in regards to, like, for example, parking. Parking is a major issue here in this area.
How the crossing would be funded, another issue.
Well, the crossing in Sydney was $75,000, and I think history shows that in Newcastle it'd be dearer.
There is absolutely no plans for council to spend any money on proposed rainbow crossings.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
A morning meeting and a new head coach. Danny Baderis laying down the law. A player that oozed heart and soul, trying to bring a seemingly lost group of footballers back to life.
He lives and breathes passion, Bez. He showed that when he was playing in his days, and certainly I know he will over the next 6 weeks.
The appointment of Danny Baderis is an outstanding one because I tell you what, no one's given more to the jersey. Throw Joey Chief in. No one's given more to the jersey than Danny Baderis. And I tell you what, if these players can't lift for Danny Baderis, then they are washed up.
I was looking for a response out of the boys, and I was hopefully, and I knew I was always going to get one today because someone's taken a fall for the group, and the boys are hurting from that.
Some of the players feel guilt. Rick Stone was a friend to many, but they let him down. Their skipper understands the board's decision, but doesn't necessarily agree with it.
Do I think he probably should have seen the year out? Yeah, yes, I do. Yesterday afternoon, I felt flat because I had all sorts of emotions. I was sad, I was disappointed, I was frustrated, but there was some guilt there as well, for sure.
Baderis has agreed to take on the role as a favour. It was never in the script. He's ruled out taking on the role full-time for now.
I'm just going to get them playing with a lot of ticker, heart, and what this club is built on.
There needs to be a reaction from it. We can't just keep saying that it's an attitude thing, and we need a response from it.
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News.
The FFA Cup is only 2 years old, but Broadmeadow is already preparing to make its second appearance in the round of 32. Last year, the Magic went agonisingly close to upsetting the Brisbane Strikers, losing in extra time.
A lot of people doubted us last year. We were massive underdogs, but we pushed
Brisbane all the way to extra time. So it's possible. Anything's possible.
In 2015, Broadmeadow squares off against another former NSL club. Heidelberg United is currently second in the Victorian Premier League, but heads to the Hunter, having won 3 of its past 7 games. The Magic players have been relying on technology to help them prepare for their rivals.
I think each individual player has looked up on YouTube, looked for some clips, see if you can get any ideas on what players they've got where they might be dangerous.
Broadmeadow is also struggling for form, registering just 2 wins from 7 games to slip out of the top 4.
At least we know we can only improve, and hopefully this is, if we get a good result and a good performance, it can lead us into the last 3 games where it gives us a chance of getting back in the finals.
The Magic will welcome back skipper Peter Haynes, but will be without the suspended John Griffiths and Jaden Barber through injury. Josh Piddington has been cleared to play with a rib injury. He and Luke Vigili will be assessed in the warm-up tomorrow night.
This isn't your traditional science lesson, creating model cars using a 3D printer, testing them, and of course the anticipated finale. RDA Hunter started the iSTEM course, which has a focus on fun, to encourage more students to study science, and it's working.
I've always been interested in pursuing a career in aviation, and it's just been a really interesting thing to study, and especially aerodynamics.
We've been able to double the number of students studying engineering studies compared to the New South Wales average, and that's just one subject. We've had similar growth in physics and mathematics, metals and engineering, a whole range of different areas.
Today, Australia's chief scientist visited Waratah to see the benefits of the approach, which he says is necessary to build a workforce capable of surviving the mining downturn.
An area like the Hunter can prosper differently from the way that it has in the past by doing things differently, doing new things, and that's important. And the education system is critically important in that transition.
It also encourages students to use their imagination and to learn from their mistakes.
Science isn't perfect. It doesn't work every single time. You don't say I'm going to do this and it actually works. You learn from your mistakes.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.